Eiga samkeppnisyfirvöld að forgangsraða verkefnum sínum í þágu eldsneytismarkaða?
I think that they certainly deserve attention because in most developed countries, they are a significant portion of income expenditures, and small margins can make a big difference. It's also the case that these are the retail gasoline industry tends to run on very small margins when it's competitive. And what that means is that the incentive if there is a way to restrict output and to restrict competition, could be quite large because the profits could go up substantially if they can restrict output because the demand is very inelastic. So I think this is an area that deserves attention.
Hvað einkennir samkeppni á eldsneytismörkuðum?
Gasoline is actually not exactly like electricity or a good that is completely homogeneous. First of all, there is spatial differentiation between the gas stations that sell the product. Secondly, there is, in most markets, a lot of advertising, and consumers see the products as differentiated even when they aren't particularly differentiated. So we have found in California and in my studies in the United States that firms can have local market power in the retail sector. That has led to the ability to price discriminate, for instance, between different sorts of buyers. Back when the United States had both leaded and unleaded gasoline, the people buying leaded gasoline, which was being phased out, tended to be poorer and more willing to shop around, and as a result, the market was more competitive. Even within the United States and within California, we see a variety of market structures and roles of small independents. And that seems to be driven by the willingness of customers to shop, to go to these brands that they're not as familiar with. So, and that seems to play a big role.
Hafa komið upp samkeppnisleg vandamál á eldsneytismarkaðnum í Kaliforníu?
So we have seen in California is access to importing infrastructure, particularly the docks and the storage facilities. Storage facilities are critical because simply getting the fuel to the dock doesn't help if you don't have a place to put it. And so concentration in the ownership of those docks and storage facilities, and particularly integration of the ownership with retailers, can be a major problem. Once, even downstream from there, what we see is that California has a much higher share of major brand retail outlets than the rest of the United States. In California, about 85% of all the gasoline is sold through one of just a handful of major brands. Whereas in the rest of the United States, the number is close to 50%. That seems to make a big difference because the ability to bring in product and undercut the market, and the willingness to do that, seems to be much greater among these independents. However, if most consumers are not willing to switch at a reasonable price differential, then you don't end up getting much price pressure. California has a significant problem with high margins on gasoline in the state right now. Much of that is probably coming in the refining sector, not downstream in retailing, which is very concentrated. And California has a special blend of gasoline that can only be made in about a dozen refineries outside the United States, outside California, and about 8 inside California.
Hvernig hægt að auka samkeppni á eldsneytismörkuðum?
So one of the things that seems to be the case is having a robust market share of small sellers who are not part of a major brand makes the market more competitive. But let me be clear, I don't think that you need to have a lot of independence, but the situation you want to avoid is a situation where a small number of vertically integrated retailers are all there is in the market. In California, we have 5 major players who are controlling a very large share of the market, and that seems to be a problem. So I wouldn't, I mean, the state hasn't proven anything, but you certainly hear from the independents that access to the facilities, the ability to bring in product and find a buyer, a retail buyer for it, is limited. And on the other side, the retail independents tell us that their ability to find marketers who will bring in product is limited. So there is this choke point at the import facility that seems to be very important. So it is very important to make sure that there are facilities available to these small independents. And that can be done either by making sure that there are facilities that are not vertically integrated, or by making sure, even if they are vertically integrated, that the facilities are still made available to independent retailers. Otherwise, you definitely have a problem that the large retailers have an incentive to buy up and restrict access to the facilities that allow others to bring in fuel and compete. There is a flip side of this, which is part of the problem that we see in the United States is a variation in willingness of customers to shop around. So making sure that customers realize that what the differences are, if there are any, and if there aren't any, making clear that they understand that this really is a homogeneous good, is very valuable, because if they are more willing to shop around, that puts more competitive pressure on the majors, the larger firms that are more likely to exercise market power.